The 1980s music industry was a ruthless neon meat grinder. One chorus could make you a superstar and completely erase you by morning. In this countdown, you will discover a sarcastic joke, mistaken for a bedroom anthem. You will meet a band that self-destructed right before their track conquered America. And wait until you hear how the king of pop hid in the shadows to cover up a suffocating family secret. These are the heartbreaking tolls of sudden fame. Today we are counting down 10 most famous one-hit wonder songs of the 1980s. Number 10, Take On Me by a-ha, released in 1985. Picture this. You are sitting cross-legged on the living room carpet, eyes glued to a boxy television screen, waiting for magic to happen. It is hard to believe now, but this track was almost thrown in the trash. 3 kids from Norway packed their bags for London with a quirky synthesizer riff they initially called Miss Eerie. Someone in the studio even joked it sounded like a cheap chewing gum commercial. Record executives rejected it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. But they refused to let it go. They armed themselves with a synthesizer to craft that infectious beat. And then there is the vocal performance. Morten Harket pushed his voice to an absolute extreme, hitting a 2.5-octave falsetto in the chorus that most pop singers would not even dare to attempt. When it finally clicked, it exploded, shooting straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. But let us be honest, it was the visual spectacle that cemented its fate. Animators spent 16 exhausting weeks drawing 3,000 frames by hand. Critics at the time rolled their eyes, dismissing them as just a pretty boy MTV gimmick. How wrong they were. You only need to hear the heartbreaking acoustic version from recent years to realize the profound sadness hidden beneath that upbeat tempo. In the United States, this remains their only journey into the top 10. They stepped out of a pencil sketch, gave us a few minutes of pure magic, and then faded back into the paper. Before we move on to the next part, make sure you've prepared a glass of cool water to join us on today's journey. Number 9, 99 Luftballons by Nena, released in 1983. A simple child's toy. That is all it took to spark one of the darkest dance hits of the Cold War. Carlo Kargas was standing in a massive crowd at a Rolling Stones concert in West Berlin. He watched a huge cluster of balloons float up into the night sky, and a terrifying thought crossed his mind. What if those balloons drifted over the Berlin Wall, right into Soviet airspace, and were mistaken for an incoming missile strike? The studio translated that exact panic into sound. Notice how that slow, innocent opening melody gets completely hijacked by a frantic, hyperactive punk beat. It perfectly captured the feeling of a world teetering on the edge of destruction. But here is the truly bizarre part. Young people all across the United States were packing into neon-lit clubs, sweating and dancing their hearts out to a song about the nuclear apocalypse. And it worked. The German version shot all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. To pull that off, scoring a massive pop hit in America using a foreign language in the middle of severe global tension is nothing short of a miracle. Nena never found that level of chart magic in the States again, solidifying their one-hit wonder status. But they left us a vital piece of history. Every time those rapid drum beats kick in, we are reminded of a fragile generation just holding their breath and hoping tomorrow would still be there. If you're watching this video, please leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. No matter where you are in the world, I believe we all share a love for the music and memories that brought us here. Number 8, Tainted Love by Soft Cell, released in 1981.
Run away, I've got to.
Imagine being a struggling British duo on the edge of a breakup. The record label is about to drop you. So, as a final act of desperation, you decide to cover a forgotten American soul track from 1964 by Gloria Jones. It is almost laughable how quickly history is made. The entire track was slapped together in just a day and a half.
Once I ran to you.
That unmistakable bink-bink sound you hear right before the chorus, it is just a human hand clap run through a machine. And Mark Almond recorded that sleazy, desperate vocal performance on his very first take. Soul purists were furious at the time. They accused these two kids of draining all the human warmth out of the original and replacing it with cold, neon-lit circuitry.
Take my tears and that's not nearly all.
But the kids in the underground clubs felt differently. They embraced that chilling synthetic heartbeat. It stayed on the Billboard Hot 100 for an exhausting 43 weeks, setting a historic record at the time, even though it never reached #1. Soft Cell never gave America another top 40 hit, but they did not need to. They officially killed the warm acoustic guitars of the 70s and dragged us all into the cold, electronic embrace of the 80s.
Tainted love.
Number 7. Come On Eileen by Dexys Midnight Runners, released in 1982. In a decade obsessed with shiny suits and heavy makeup, this band showed up on national television wearing dirt-stained denim overalls. The fashion critics laughed, calling them country bumpkins lost in a neon world. But it was not a gimmick. It was a raw, unapologetic statement for the working class. Kevin Rowland wrote this track from a place of deep frustration. Growing up in the decaying industrial town of Birmingham, he poured all his youthful loneliness and rebellion against strict religious pressure into a song that oddly sounds like a drunken pub celebration. They completely banned synthesizers from the studio. Instead, they armed themselves with banjos, accordions, and fiddles. But the true magic happens in the bridge. Notice how the tempo just keeps speeding up faster and faster? Today, producers lock every single drum beat onto a perfect computer grid. But back then, that wild, chaotic acceleration was pure human energy. It is a messy, beautiful flaw that you simply cannot fake with a machine. The public felt that authenticity instantly. The song exploded, flying straight to #1 in both the United States and the UK, selling millions of copies and temporarily saving a struggling record industry. Sure, they vanished from the American charts almost immediately after, but look at the permanent gift they left behind. They gave us an immortal wedding anthem, a song that forces you to grab the person next to you and dance until your lungs give out. They dared to be incredibly human, right when the rest of the world was trying to be plastic. And speaking of hiding in plain sight, wait until you hear how our next artist slipped a dark tale of crime right onto the disco dance floor. Number 6, Der Kommissar by After the Fire, released in 1983. At first listen, this sounds like just another upbeat dance track. But if you pay attention to the lyrics, it is actually a dark story about kids running from the police over illegal drug deals. They cleverly disguise the whole thing by using street slang like sugar and snow. Millions of American teenagers were dancing in their bedrooms, totally clueless that they were grooving to a song about the cocaine trade.
And I got to thinking while she was talking that I know she told the story.
But the real story here is the heartbreaking irony of the band itself. After the Fire was a struggling British rock group trying to save their sinking career by covering this German track. The recording sessions were tense. They were exhausted and hated each other. In December 1982, they literally broke up on stage. They called it quits and walked away for good.
Don't turn around. Shut up.
And then a cruel twist of fate. Just weeks after they disbanded, the song exploded in the United States, shooting into the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Record executives were calling frantically, begging them to cross the ocean for a massive American tour. But the band was already dead. They never reunited to enjoy their single moment of massive American glory. A brilliant pop hit, entirely ruled the airwaves, but it was made by ghosts. If you're still watching, leave a comment with the number 6. It'll let me know that I'm sharing these memories with a fellow fan of 80s music. Number 5, Mickey by Tony Basil, released in 1982. Tony Basil was already a respected legend behind the scenes, choreographing for heavyweights like David Bowie. She stumbled upon an obscure British song called Kitty, originally written for a guy to sing about a girl. Tony looked at it and thought, why not flip the genders? She changed Kitty to Mickey, threw on a high school cheerleader uniform, and grabbed some pom-poms. While every other band at the time was spending a fortune on complex electronic synthesizers, she stripped everything down. The secret weapon of this track is just the raw, echoing sound of human stomps and claps. It sounds less like a polished studio recording and more like a chaotic high school gym on a Friday night. Music critics were completely baffled. They could not understand how something so repetitive, so seemingly silly, could take over the country. But the teenagers loved it. It marched straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, leaving all those serious rock bands in the dust. Tony never really chased pop superstardom after that. She simply smiled, dropped her pom-poms, and went right back to her true love of directing dance. For her, it was just a fun little detour. But for the rest of us, she left behind an inescapable burst of joy. Every time those stomps kick in, you cannot help but tap your feet and remember a time when music did not have to be so serious to be absolutely unforgettable. Number 4, Whip It by Devo, released in 1980.
Break your mama's back.
As the 1970s dragged to a miserable close, a group of art school outcasts from Ohio decided to mock the rising American hustle culture. Mark Mothersbaugh put on a ridiculous red plastic energy dome and wrote lyrics pieced together from bizarre poems and a satirical book on presidents. It was supposed to be a sharp critique of the self-help movement, telling everyone to just whip their problems away. The studio sessions were just as eccentric. That unmistakable whip sound, it was not a real whip at all. It was just a homemade effects box recorded through a cheap microphone to make it sound cold and mechanical. But then the record hit the airwaves, and the biggest cultural misunderstanding of the decade happened. Millions of Americans, especially in the neon-lit dance clubs, thought this was an anthem for underground BDSM culture. The band was absolutely shocked, but the confusion paid off. It reached number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold over 1 million copies.
Now whip it into shape.
Devo never had another hit in the United States top 40. They were brilliant visionaries, and Mark eventually became a highly respected film composer. But to the mainstream American public, they are forever frozen in 1980. Looking back, it is actually deeply poetic. We were stepping into a frantic, capitalist new era, and Devo handed us the exact frantic soundtrack we needed. They showed us that sometimes a misunderstood joke can become the very heartbeat of a generation. And speaking of running away from reality, our next artist decided to run so far away that they ended up defining the look of the entire space age. Number 3, I Ran by a Flock of Seagulls, released in 1982. Mike Score used to be a hairdresser. That little detail explains a lot. But beneath that heavily mocked waterfall haircut was a guy deeply obsessed with alien visitations. He took a strange chord played by his bassist during rehearsal and turned it into a desperate sci-fi escape. To get that futuristic sound, they ran a guitar through heavy delay pedals until it echoed like a distress signal in deep space. The British press was absolutely ruthless. They tore the band apart, calling them shallow and obsessed with style over substance. But American kids sitting in front of their televisions saw something completely different. Thanks to a brand new channel called MTV, music was no longer just something you listened to in the dark. You had to look the part. The visual of that trembling videotape burned itself into the retinas of a whole generation. It shot to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. Yes, the haircut became a massive cultural joke, but if you strip away the neon and the hairspray, this is really a song about profound isolation. It is a cry for help, a wish to run so far away from the crushing reality of everyday life that nobody can ever find you. They gave an anxious generation the ultimate soundtrack for escapism. Number 2. Turning Japanese by the Vapors, released in 1980. David Fenton wrote this track from a place of pure suffocating heartbreak. It was never meant to be a joke. He was trying to describe that terrifying feeling of losing yourself after a brutal breakup, when you feel so alienated that you are turning into a completely different person. They combined raw punk energy with a frantic pentatonic riff to mimic a mind spiraling out of control. But then, a bizarre urban legend started spreading in parking lots and high schools across America. People convinced themselves the song was a dirty joke about self-satisfaction. The rumor was so powerful that conservative radio stations completely banned it. The band begged the public to listen to the actual lyrics, but nobody cared about the truth when the lie was so entertaining. It stalled at number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Vapors dissolved just a year later, exhausted and crushed by the weight of a misunderstood punchline. It is actually deeply tragic when you think about it. A young man poured his shattered heart into a microphone, begging for connection, and the world just laughed. But today, that anxious rhythm still hits close to home for anyone who has ever loved someone enough to lose their own identity.
No sex, no drugs, no wine, no women, no fun, no...
Number 1, Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell, released in 1984.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Kennedy William Gordy carried a massive secret. His father was Berry Gordy, the legendary founder of Motown Records. But Kennedy desperately wanted to prove he could make it on his own, without the family name. So he changed his identity to Rockwell and poured all his anxiety and suffocating paranoia into a track about feeling constantly stalked.
Can the people on TV see me, or am I just paranoid?
But to make the song truly unforgettable, he needed a specific voice for the chorus. So he called up his childhood friend to drop by the studio. That friend just happened to be Michael Jackson. In 1984, Michael was the undisputed king of the planet thanks to Thriller, but his name was intentionally left off the record jacket. When the song dropped, the world lost its mind, trying to guess who the mystery singer was.
People call me on the phone, I'm trying to avoid.
The track exploded, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Critics later sneered that Rockwell only succeeded because of his royal connections, but they completely missed the point. He perfectly captured the terrifying pressure of living under a giant shadow. Rockwell never reached the top 10 again, cementing his place as the ultimate 80s one-hit wonder. He gave us an immortal Halloween anthem and proved that sometimes the greatest trick you can pull is hiding the biggest pop star in the world right in plain sight.
When I'm in the shower, I'm afraid to wash my hair.
From red plastic energy domes, to boys stepping out of pencil sketches, and the king of pop hiding in the shadows of a paranoid chorus. The 1980s gave us a neon fever dream that we are still waking up from. These artists might not have stayed in the spotlight for long, but they proved that sometimes one single perfect moment is all you need to live forever. To keep this late-night time machine running, make sure you subscribe to the station. And tell me in the comments, which fading melody from the 1980s still echoes in your mind today?
Run away, I've got to